So today I'm gonna talk about something that is going to upset some of you. I'm sorry. I'll say it up front, but I don't really mean it. Because when we were researching this topic, the interesting thing was, it was very difficult to search through the media, the fake news, to find the actual facts, and that's what we're gonna bring you today. We did a lot of research, a lot of due diligence to make sure what we found was the truth. And we're gonna talk about Donald Trump and what would happen if he were to win the 2024 elections. That's the topic of today. My name's Chris Naugle, and this is What Now? What's next if Trump wins? So as of right now, February 2024, there is a really good chance Trump will win the election. But it's a long year. Being that it's February, the election's not till November, there's a lot of things that could change. But all we have is what's available today, which, believe me, was very difficult to find this stuff. But here's an article by Forbes, and I love this article because what it's showing you is if the election were today, Biden, the dude wouldn't have a chance of winning. Because as of today, in this poll they did, Trump would win 50 of the electoral votes, which would pretty much mean a landslide. Now, that's just one article. Then there's a whole bunch of other ones, and there are plenty of articles out there saying that Trump can't win because of this or that. But all of the ones talking about Trump not winning are all going back to his last presidential election, trying to find faults in all the things he did. But what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about not the faults, we could hit those all day too, because listen, he made plenty of mistakes, but he did a lot of things right. And those things that he did right are what are paving the way right now and getting him all the support that he currently has. Now, I did say as a disclaimer in the beginning, I'm gonna piss some people off. It's okay. Because here's the beauty. This country, the United States of America, the land of opportunity and the land of the free, gives us all the right to have our own opinions politically, religiously, and just about anything, because we live in this country. So I can vote for who I want to, and you can vote for who you want to. But the cool part is I'm gonna try to play this one right down the middle and have an open mind on both sides. But it's really tough when you start digging into the facts to have an open mind that the dude could potentially win, because everything is saying Trump, as of right now, would win by a landslide. We talk about this guy a lot, Jamie Dimon. And Jamie Dimon has been in the news a lot, but very different. It's almost like it's a different Jamie Dimon. Me and Jordan were sitting back one day and we're like, do you think that's really Jamie Dimon, or do you think that's one of those look-alike AI kind of things? Because, you know, for the last couple of years, Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon's kind of had a mixed view politically. And I would almost have said that he was all for the dude. But as of recently, he's changed his tune. Now, I don't know why. Maybe he's getting juiced a little bit of money from the Republican committee, but maybe he was juiced by the Democratic committee. Who knows who's getting juiced by what? But the fact of the matter is Jamie Dimon, in this interview right here by CNBC, and they were trying to shut him down. Watch closely. Like, he's talking about Trump, and he's talking about some of the things Trump got right, and he's saying he kind of called it. Not in his exact words, but he's kind of saying, you know, he kind of got it right. If Biden gets in, these are the things that are going to happen. And holy smokes, in a second, I'm going to show you the things that actually did happen when the dude took over as president. But Jamie Dimon seems to be pro-Trump. Now, I don't know why. Trump was pretty good for the economy. He did a pretty darn good job. I mean, Jamie Dimon, I don't know, maybe because he's looking to maybe step down. And that is just my opinion. I can't tell you whether that's going to happen or not, but I'm just trying to think with an open mind, and I'm trying to think logically about why he changed his tune. Maybe it's just because he finally woke up one day and said, you know what? This country would be better off under Trump. I don't know. How many of you think that? Seriously, like, how many of you right now in the comments, why don't you put that? Do you think the United States would be better if Trump were the president, okay? And if you think the United States would be better under somebody else, let us know. My wife Larissa, back in her younger days when she was in college, she actually was working for Arnold Schwarzenegger and helping with his campaign. Little useless knowledge. But my wife is very in tune politically, and my wife is very in the middle. She sees both sides. She doesn't really try to take a strong opinion either way, but I will tell you, I think she definitely likes Trump a lot. But she likes Trump because he's not a politician, because he doesn't act like a politician, because he's a businessman who knows how to get business done. And she saw that when he was president. And she very much liked the world we were in and the country that we lived in during his leadership. So now, you've all heard of CNN. CNN 100% is very left, okay? You all know that to be true. They love bashing Trump. And one of the interesting things is, after the dude won presidency, there was a whole bunch of articles that I remember vividly about CNN struggling as a network because they weren't putting Trump on their network. So what that meant is a lot of people would tune into CNN because they were always talking about Trump, mostly negative, but people tuned in. When they stopped talking about Trump, their ratings fell. I don't know, but now they're right back at it. And here's an article, CNN Business, check this out. These are 10 charts that show how the economy performed under Trump versus prior presidents. And I found this fascinating. But again, like I said, they're very left. So they did say, then the COVID-19 pandemic changed everything. Now, when you try to research this and you try to get down to the facts, what you're going to find is on the surface level, without digging deep like we had to create this what now, what next, you're gonna find a whole bunch of stuff that talks about Trump in a totally negative way. And almost everything we found points fingers at Trump for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and how he handled it, or some would say how he didn't handle it. Now, that's a matter of opinion. That's definitely a matter of opinion on how it was handled by him and how it was handled by the dude. Because all I can tell you, when the dude came in, the biggest thing I saw is everybody should just go get the shot.
Go get vaccinated, America.
That's the answer for everything. But then everybody did pretty much go get the shot, at least to the point of herd immunity, which I don't know if they ever reached, but they were pushing really hard. They were giving people burgers and fries. It's kind of like, man, I'll beep beep for a burger. But it was pretty aggressive. So aggressive that most people went and got the shot because everybody else was. Now, let me be clear about something, and I'm gonna pause the talk of politics and Trump and the dude, and I'm gonna come over here to another thing. Mr. Earl Nightingale's strangest secret in the world. In that, he talks about the difference between the 5%, the successful, and the 95%, the unsuccessful. And he clearly articulates the difference between the 5% and the 95%. And here's what it is. Now, this might not be what you want to hear, but sometimes the truth hurts. So what is the difference between the 5% who are successful, okay, financially successful, wealthy, rich, whatever you want to call it, and the 95% that just can't seem to figure it out, that aren't really doing well, that are struggling? What is the difference between the two? Well, let me tell you. And there was a lot of science behind this. The difference was the 5% created. They created their lives, their businesses, their dreams, their goals. They thought about them. They planted a worthy idea in their mind, and they never stopped working toward them. They created their destiny. So what's the difference between the 95%? What did they do wrong? Because if the 5% created, what did the 95% do? Drum roll, please. They conformed. They conformed to everybody else's ideas, everybody else's failed reality, failed dreams, failed goals, and everybody else's way of thinking. So when I think back to the handling of the pandemic and the vaccines and everything else, I gotta really lean into this 5 and 95%. Because 95%, what did they do? Conformed. Now, I'm not saying that any of you watching this conformed. I'm simply pointing out that there is a lot to think about when you think about the difference between success and failure, and you put it down to creation versus conformity, and that conformity was very alive during the pandemic. And all the news articles back to Mr. Trump and Biden and everything going on here in 2024, the election year, comes down to who's creating and who's conforming. Well, let's talk about creation. And let's talk about creation when Trump was president. So check this CNN business out. 10 charts that show how Trump's economy performed versus other presidents. Well, as you go through this, you can see jobs, okay? You can see that the economy and the jobs under his presidency were doing very well. Job growth was really almost on a straight trajectory up until the pandemic, when it fell off, when they shut the entire country down and nobody could go to work, nobody could travel, everybody had to wear a mask. You couldn't do anything. Hell, you couldn't even go see a movie. Yeah, you all remember that. So we can really only measure this up to the pandemic, okay? Because after that, it's just, then it becomes opinion and conformity and all that good stuff. But he was doing well from a job standpoint. Let's keep going to these. Unemployment, okay? How was unemployment looking under his administration and his presidency? Well, it was looking really freaking good. It was going down, down, and down until the pandemic, when it shot up. And if we compared just that little snapshot to all the other presidents, well, it could only be rivaled. I wouldn't even say rivaled, because Trump, when they shut the country down, his unemployment spiked over 14.7%. Only one that even comes close is W. Bush, right there. So let's keep going though. As we go to income, median income, this is wild. Look at Trump's numbers. Median income, the middle class income skyrocketed during Trump's presidency. There's no other president, maybe Clinton, but it was a slower growth, okay? No other president that even rivaled this growth, and that was in median income. Huge gains. Now a lot of people, when they look at this chart, I guarantee you some people are going to say, yeah, well, his median income was going up, but so was inflation. Wrong again. As a matter of fact, factual data would show you that inflation was going down during Trump's presidency, while median income was going up pretty substantially. In other words, most Americans were benefiting from having more money, more savings, and it was a pretty freaking robust time for the economy in the United States of America. And the S&P 500 also rivals that. During the period of time Trump was in administration, not counting the pandemic and that little bleep down, the economy and the markets were all doing pretty good. Now, compared to other presidents like Clinton and Obama and Reagan, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't as good, but he only ran one term. So you got to compare that with the 2 terms for most of those presidents I just mentioned. But if we just look at it during the term he had, the markets did pretty darn good. Let me hit one more thing with the S&P 500, and also could be said for the economy. A lot of people say that during Obama, the economy was doing really well, which it really was, and so was the market. It was part of the longest bull run in history. And they're all just saying that when Trump took over, he just took over one of the greatest economies of all time, which isn't really altogether true. But he did take over a good economy. So I guess you guys can put that one in your mind any which way you want. But home prices, yep, they were doing pretty darn good, up 21.2% during his administration. Okay, food prices. This one's pretty interesting. Food prices were very stable and very low up until the pandemic. It felt like the grocery bills surged after he wasn't president. Now, some of you would say, oh, that was because of the pandemic and because of supply and demand and inflation, but you're right. But during his administration, food prices were very low in retrospect. Consumer spending, yep, not too bad, almost a straight line up, very much rivals Reagan and Clinton, keeping going down. Manufacturing jobs, way up. One thing that I think everyone can agree on is during Trump's administration, during his time as president, it was a very good time for industry. It was a very good time for manufacturing jobs. It was a very good time for a lot of industries. As a matter of fact, manufacturing jobs, they were doing well, but they didn't go down. And that was the most important thing. He was stabilizing manufacturing. He was bringing a lot of manufacturing back from overseas because of some of his tariffs and different policies that he had in place. Now listen, I want to be very clear, folks. I'm not an expert when it comes to politics. I'm just reading off of these reports. So folks, if you are an expert when it comes to politics, kudos to you. I don't want to be an expert. I am literally just reading off of these reports and looking at the factual data and trying to tame my opinion down so that I'm only focused on what actually happened. Debt to GDP, okay, there was a big rise under Trump. So, in other words, we incurred more debt. And you know, the kind of the funny thing about that, if you look at every other president with the exception of Clinton, every other president also increased debt. It just seems like that's just the going thing. We got to increase debt in order to maintain this economy, which I'm not saying is a good thing at all, but Trump definitely increased debt. So that's a bad chart. But here's an interesting thing about all of these charts, and I'd love to find the data, but we couldn't find it. Do you notice how none of these charts show the dude? None of these charts show Biden's numbers, because I bet if we were to kind of put Biden into this chart of debt, which was literally Obama led the pack on that one. He had the highest amount of debt that he added as a president of any other president. And then Trump came in, and then where's Biden on this one? Well, I guess maybe it's a bit too early to put his data up, but I'd have to believe that under Biden, he's the new reigning champion for debt. I just don't have that data, so I can't put a pin in it. This just in, I got to come back to this debt to GDP because it is an important topic. And if you're looking at the same chart I'm staring at right here from CNN Business, what you'll see is the debt to GDP jump under Trump's watch didn't really happen until when? Right around the pandemic. Up until that point, it was pretty level. And when Trump took office, debt to GDP was 76%. When he left office, it was 105%. Largely skewed, as you can see, by the debt incurred during the beginning part of the pandemic. Now, that would be all good and said, and you guys could just kind of put the pin in and be like, yep, Trump did a terrible job of handling the pandemic, jumped the debt up, but hold on a second. The dude came in, Biden. And where is the debt to GDP today? So if Trump left it at 105, okay, so he increased debt to GDP by 29 percentage points. What happened since then? Well, this just in, the United States government debt accounted for 122.9% of the country's nominal GDP. So during the dude's administration, he also increased debt at an alarming rate. We went from 105 to 122.9. Now, we can look at both of those. Both of the debt to GDPs were largely increased during the COVID pandemic. So Trump, when he increased the debt, it was at the end of his administration, largely because of the pandemic. And obviously we all know how much money did they print, folks? Put it in the chat. How much money was printed, not by the government, but by the Fed and given back to the government? Oh yeah, 5.2 how much? Is it million? Is it 5.2 billion? Or is it 5.2 trillion dollars? It's trillion, folks. That's a lot of loot. It's a lot of money, and that's raining money. So I guess if you're gonna sit there and you're gonna look at these two, Trump versus Biden, and look at the debt to GDP, well, both of them did pretty much the same thing, but you could argue based on this chart that most of Trump's debt came at the end of his administration, which was what? During the pandemic. Listen, folks, the truth hurts sometimes. I'm just trying to give you the hard to find data that we found. So here are some of the things that maybe could happen if Trump were to become the next president here in 2024. And this comes from News Nation. What are Donald Trump's stances on major issues to voters? Well, let's get into it. So they go through and they talk about all the candidates and candidates that have actually dropped out, like Vivek, and we also had Ron DeSantis drop out, both which are endorsing Trump now. And I found that to be kind of strange because, you know, DeSantis and Trump were kind of bickering back and forth. But there's going to be some changes as it comes to retirement and Social Security, and Trump and Haley differ greatly on that. But let's just talk about just some of the highlights, and there's a lot of them, and folks, you can read them for yourself. It's in this article, News Nation Now. But right here, he would launch the largest deportation effort in U.S. history, paid for, not with new printed money, with redirected military funds. Reuters reported that one. Now, he also said he would restore his Remain in Mexico program. Again, this is kind of that open border thing that the dudes got going on. Like, they're pretty much wide open. Like, I just heard that one of the big terrorist group guys just got let over, and he was bragging about it. He's just like, yeah, I'm here, and I'm gonna He didn't actually say that, but it was basically him saying that. So anyway, back over here to this article. He's going to end the catch and release. He's also going to deputize U.S. National Guard and local law enforcement to help with the rapid deportation of these criminals. He's going to enact travel bans denying entry to people from the Gaza Strip, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and anywhere that threatens our security. So folks, you can go to sleep, and you could probably not even have to worry about locking your doors. Well, depends on where you live. He would block communists, Marxists, and socialists from entering the U.S. and send deportation officers to pro-Hamas protests. I don't think that's a bad idea. Now, some of you will disagree with that. Anyway, we can agree to disagree on every one of these points. He would end birthright citizen for children born in the U.S. to undocumented parents. He would end Biden's immigration parole program and roll back the temporary protected status designations. He would end the deferred action for childhood arrival program. You can look that one up. I don't know enough about it. And while he was president, about 450 miles of the wall were installed. He would probably just keep that going on. He would also have some policies on crime. He would really go after the homeless encampments that you see in cities. He would give them designated places. He would move them. Let's pause for a second. I remember, and we actually just refound it, an article about how Newsom, the guy or whatever you call him, running California, when Xi Jinping, the leader of China, the president of China, was coming to San Francisco, what did Newsom do? He literally cleaned out all these encampments, literally just moved them all, got them so it looked perfect. But it's all back now. But that's what he did just because the leader of China was coming to meet. Now, I don't know, you can always, go to, is somebody two-faced? 1 second he's like all for the homeless camps. Then all of a sudden, China comes into town. He's like, all right, guys, gotta go. Anyway, but, some of the other things here with Trump's policies on crime. How many of you actually feel really comfortable now with the whole crime situation? I know you probably didn't during the pandemic with all the riots and everything else that were going on, but how comfortable do you feel? You feel really secure, with the defunding of the police and, cops not being able to really do their job? Well, Trump is vowing that he's going to change some of that. He's going to give police more authority. He's going to deploy the military to fight the nation's drug problem, which we have a serious drug problem. He's going to impose the death penalty for convicted drug dealers. He's going to deliver record funding to hire and retain police officers. So no more of this defund the police. He's going to pay the police to protect the citizens of the United States. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm all for that. I gotta say, I like that. I would feel good about that. I would feel good that my daughter would live in a country that there is law enforcement that is paid and actually respected. And that's one thing too that Trump, this is offline, but I remember vividly watching Trump while he was in office. He was very, very respectful and very grateful for our military. I'll never forget there was one time there was, one of the military officers by his plane or his helicopter and his hat blew off. Trump ran over, picked the hat up, put it back on, shook his hand, patted him on the shoulder. Like, that is awesome. Now, I don't think I've seen that with the dude. All I've seen him do is fall downstairs, but I don't think I've ever seen him literally go and be thankful and respectful to the military. Now, I could be way out of line. But another thing that might be out of line is I'm gonna ask you for something after we're sitting here. You're watching this video, probably not liking what it is, or maybe you're liking it, but I'm gonna ask you to do something for me. I'm gonna ask you right now to click that button, that subscribe button right there, click that. And right above, there's a little, coming in hot, a little bell. Up. You all right? That was pretty freaking cool. Smash that bell and cool things will happen, like this thing just landed in the perfect place. So I could come over here and I could hit it again. Anyway, let's get back into this. How many of you have some guns in your house? You know, it's interesting, and I don't know exactly when it was, but someone in Japan, one of the military folks in Japan, back some time ago said, if we were to attack the US on their soil, there'd be a citizen with a gun behind every blade of grass or something to that extent. Well, that's because we have the right to bear arms. And that has been largely true in this country. It was in the Constitution. It was a huge thing of our founding fathers that we should bear arms so we can protect our country. Not just the military, but the citizens can fight for their freedom. Now, I know in this country we have a lot of guns. And I know the media has done a really good job of highlighting how dangerous guns are, these ARs and everything else. And oh my gosh, then the government under the Biden administration would come in and say, I'm gonna take all the guns away. And they've tried and they've done a lot. I live in New York. You know, it's even hard to buy ammo here. And the guns we can buy, boring. Anyway, not about that, but you know what? Coming over here to Trump, he hasn't really outlined a specific path for how he's gonna handle gun control. But during the Trump era, there was basically, it was pretty much follow the Constitution, the right to bear arms. Stance on Israel and Palestine. So Trump hasn't really said anything. He just said it's gonna have to just play out. I don't know how I feel about that, but there was an article, or actually an interview that he did on Fox News that said, we need to protect Israel, there is no choice. Russia, Ukraine, this is interesting, and I don't know how to put my finger on this, but the Russia-Ukraine war has been going on for a while. A lot of lives have been lost. It's a bit scary, and the contagion of that war could easily spread and create a world war, especially with now you got, you know, the Israel and Hamas war, you got the Russia-Ukraine war, you got the whole BRICS thing. I mean, we're literally like got the makings of the next world war coming, but here's what Trump says on Russia-Ukraine. He said he would call for a ceasefire. He said he could solve the conflict in one day. Here are the things you can expect to have happen. And you know what? This is what Jamie Dimon was talking about. He kind of told you what was going to happen. We're going to have rampant inflation. You're going to have open borders. Pretty much we're no longer going to be energy independent. What else was he saying? Well, here, let's look at this article. Let's see here. Gas prices, he said, we're going to go much higher. How do you like those gas prices, right? I don't know if he ever said anything about the EVs, but we covered that. He doesn't like Bitcoin. Let's see. Oh, food prices. He said food prices are going to go through the roof. Boy, they sure have, Mr. Trump. Oh, more pop-ups. Oh, what happened? Dude, this is crazy. They do not want me to talk about this stuff. Norton decided they were going to come in and say that I'm infected with 5 viruses. All right, we'll delete that. Anyway, back to Trump and his landslide victory if the election were today. Just prefacing that. But anyway, he did pretty much call it out. He mostly said under Biden's administration, these are the things the U.S. can expect to happen. And most of them did. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. But you know, here's the interesting part about all of this, folks. We had to search really hard to get the data we needed for today's episode. Whether or not you agree or disagree doesn't matter, because again, we can agree to disagree. But the fact of the matter is, there's the 5% and the 95%. What's the difference? Creation versus conformity. Right now, are you conforming or are you creating? And why are you not getting what you want in life? That's the question I would ask. I will tell you from my seat right here. I have spent most of my life creating, and I have failed a lot of times. But in those failures were lessons, valuable lessons that I've picked up and learned from. And I have created some amazing things that have served thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in a positive way. And what is it that I teach today? What is it that I went off the beaten path to do? I used to be a financial advisor. That was the path most people follow, okay? I got out of Wall Street, retired in 18, and I went down the path less followed to teach folks how to take back control of their money and how to be their own bank. And I have faced a lot of haters doing that. A lot of people that think they know what just ain't so. And I'm gonna leave you with today's episode on a Will Rogers quote, one of my favorite. And he said, the biggest problem in America is not what we don't know. Will Rogers said the biggest problem in America is what we think we know that just ain't so. So let me give you my best take. Right now we're in the winter season. There are different cycles and different seasons in the economy and in the financial aspects of all of our lives. And we are right now in what you would call the winter season. And obviously you all know winter is followed by spring. So I think things are gonna get a lot worse. I think 24 and even into 2025, we are going to witness harder times. That's right. I don't know whether or not we'll end up in a war, but some of the things that are developing largely point that direction. So I would warn these things. There is a potential for the next world war. That's definitely in the making right now. I think the economy, although some of you think is doing really well, and I have a lot of people saying, hey, Chris, things look good. Should we get back in the market? I think the economy will continue to slip because that's just what's going to happen. We are at the end of a long-term debt cycle, and we're beyond the end of a short-term debt cycle. So cyclically, we have to go down before we can go back up, and that is what I think will happen. I think we will land in a recession. Will it be a mild or a severe one? I'm going to say it's going to be a bad one. The economists will say it will be very mild, but we will be in a recession. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. We will not soft land this economy, as you keep hearing. Things will not be rosy and the markets will not keep testing new highs. That you can mark my words. So it is time to get your financial house in order. But under Trump, I do see that we will start entering the spring season. And then after spring comes summer. And you all know spring and summer are pretty darn nice. So we got to go through the thick and thin of the hard times before we come out the other side and get to witness the better times. I think the future looks bright for the United States of America. I think it looks a lot brighter with proper leadership and somebody that actually wants to run this country like a business and actually care about it. Because I gotta tell you, this is absolutely my opinion. I feel like the country is being gutted from the inside out. That's how I feel. So I think under proper leadership, under Trump's leadership, I think the United States of America will be in a better place. I think the economy will start to see better times, and I think all of you will benefit. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. With that being said, folks, go out there, take back control of your money, and take back control of your money by learning how you can be the bank. If you want to learn more about that, there's a video in my bio. Watch that video, book a call with our team, and I want to say thank you for joining me for another episode of What Now? What's next? We're gonna find out. Hey, if you liked this video, check this one out right here. It's called 2025. It's a look back from 2025 to the world we are in today. I think you'll enjoy it. See you on the next one.